If you've been trying to improve your sleep, you've probably come across the term sleep hygiene. And maybe you're wondering, what even is it? Do I need to follow all of these rules perfectly? And which sleep hygiene habits actually matter? If you're new to my channel, hello, I'm Meredith Louden. I used to have chronic insomnia and now I'm a sleep coach. And today we're going to be talking about sleep hygiene, including what's helpful, what's overhyped, and how to use it without stressing yourself out. Because here is the truth. A lot of people over-focus on sleep hygiene, but obsessing about your sleep usually makes it worse. So instead of stressing out about doing everything right, I'm going to walk you through what I personally recommend based on my own 16-year struggle with insomnia and what actually makes a difference for the clients that I work with. So let's start with the top sleep hygiene tips that I do recommend. The first one is pretty straightforward, and that's to keep your room dark, quiet, and cool, ideally between 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. But to me, that's pretty cold. But obviously being in a hot room isn't ideal, but I don't think it needs to be that cold if you don't have an air conditioner. I live in Mexico City. I don't have AC and I still sleep great. I leave the window open. I have a fan, but the room is definitely not even close to 67 degrees. So just do the best with whatever you have and just make it as dark as possible, or you can use an eye mask, which is what I do sometimes. If it's quiet, great, but sometimes that's not in your control if you live in a noisy area. So, also just do your best with that, but it's not a deal breaker if it's not perfectly silent. Next one, also pretty straightforward, is to avoid caffeine in the afternoon or evening. I do notice that if I have only 1 cup of coffee per day versus 2 to 3, I usually do sleep better, but it's more about how late in the day you've had caffeine. I try to stop drinking caffeine by 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. because it can actually stay in your bloodstream for up to 12 hours. The half-life of caffeine is about 5 hours, which means that after 5 hours, you have half the amount of caffeine still left in your body. And that remaining half can last in your bloodstream for more than 5 hours. So usually it takes about 8 to 10 hours for all of the caffeine to be out of your system. And so that is why I try to cut it off around noon, because if you drink coffee past then, you could have caffeine in your body till up to 10 p.m. or even midnight. Most people should probably cut it off by about 2 p.m., but if you're sensitive to it, then you might want to cut it off even earlier. Next is to avoid alcohol before bed. I'm not a big alcohol consumer. I drink maybe just once in a while if I have a friend visiting or some special occasion. Alcohol increases your resting heart rate and lowers your heart rate variability, which means that your sleep quality is much poorer. Alcohol is also a diuretic, so it's likely to make you wake up multiple times during the night to use the restroom. And alcohol can also disrupt your melatonin production, which is the hormone that makes you fall asleep. So yeah, I think that pretty much makes the case there. My recommendation is to not drink alcohol during the week, at least Sunday to Thursday, and you'll probably feel a lot better and also sleep better. Another sleep hygiene tip I generally agree with is to exercise regularly, but not right before bed. Movement helps regulate your sleep, just ideally not right before you're trying to go to sleep. That said, I'm a dancer and my dance team ends at around 10 p.m. So I'm usually up until 11:30 just getting home and winding down. If you have a consistent early wake up time to get up in the morning, try exercising just before 8 p.m., but you also don't have to be super strict with this. I can still sleep well even though I'm up late. It just might take me a little bit more time to fall asleep because I have to let my body wind down. This one I for sure am on board with, which is to avoid mentally stimulating activities before bed, like intense work or binging the most dramatic TV show of all time. Anything that just revs up your brain might delay your sleep. So try not to hype yourself up on emails or intense conversations right before bed. Anything that just revs up your brain might delay sleep because you've basically woken yourself up and your body needs time to slow down and wind down before bed. Okay, now for the fun part. Let's get into the sleep hygiene rules that I don't personally follow and why I don't think you need to either. The first one I really disagree with is to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. I sleep in on the weekends. Sorry. I don't believe you need to be robotic about this. Flexibility is healthy. Life varies, right? So consistency can be helpful with your sleep-wake cycle, but you don't need to obsess over it. The next one is to limit your screen time 1 to 2 hours before bed. This is kind of nuanced for me. I don't think it's about the screens so much. It's about what you're doing on them. So if you're doom scrolling on TikTok or deep diving into the comment sections, that's not that great because you're just like keeping your brain in this like activated buzzing sort of state. But if you're on Pinterest, getting some inspiration or watching a calming video, that's a totally different vibe. So just pay attention to what your brain is doing and try to let it slow down in the evening. The next sleep hygiene tip that I just don't like is to reserve your bed for sleep and intimacy only. I kind of ignore this one. If I want to sit in bed, I'm going to sit in bed, okay? I find it relaxing. I think that relaxing in bed with a show on or just chilling on my phone or laptop, I like it. It helps me relax. And a lot of people do this and still sleep great. Like probably the majority of the population is doing this. The next sleep hygiene tip that I really disagree with is if you can't sleep, get out of bed after 15 to 20 minutes. I've talked about this one in depth in other videos on my channel, but for most people, I don't believe that this is the most helpful thing to do because getting out of bed usually just adds more stress. I'd rather that you rest, stay all cozy in bed, and instead keep your eyes closed while listening to an audiobook or a podcast to keep you in a relaxed state. That alone can help you drift back to sleep quickly without this whole getting out of bed back and forth thing. Sleep hygiene can be helpful, but it's not a magic solution, especially if you're dealing with trouble sleeping on a nightly basis. If you want to improve your sleep long term, I suggest to instead focus more on regulating your nervous system, reprogramming your subconscious mind to feel safe at night, and retraining your brainwaves to slow down easily. And that's the approach that I take with my method called the Sleep Success Method. And I actually walk you through the whole strategy inside my free masterclass, which you can find in the description below. So let me know in the comments, which sleep hygiene tips do you find the most helpful and which ones do you ignore? I'd love to hear your take on this, and commenting will help other people find this video who need this information. You still have the natural ability to sleep, and you are so much more powerful than you think.